This is Faux-Authentic History.
Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm Brian Young.
And I'm Holly Fry.
Holly, this is part 2 of our episode on the Jedi Council and the personalities that were on it. You excited to get back into this?
I am. You know, the Jedi Council is obviously, as it warranted 2 episodes, such a rich piece of galactic history that I'm really excited that we can dig in now on some of the more prominent members that were on the council at various times.
And it's really surprising to see how much we went through all of it in the first episode. As far as I'm aware, I don't think we've got anybody on this episode that's sort of still whereabouts unknown. You know what I mean? Like, there's a surprising amount of members of the council who we just don't know where they ended up after the Purge of the Jedi.
Yeah, we don't know if they were, in fact, killed in Order 66 or if they somehow survived and lived out the remainder of their lives in hiding. We just have no clue. The records stop, so unless some new piece of information is unearthed, we're going to live in mystery for a lot of them.
Yeah, but from here on out, I think we've got some of the larger personalities that were on the council and had a little bit more direct influence on galactic events. A lot of the Jedi we talked about in episode 1 were just sort of like present and accounted for at meetings, really.
Yeah, we talked about the importance in that episode of how meeting minutes may sound very dull, but sometimes that's all you have to go on when you're tracing a historical record.
So, for this episode, why don't we start with Jedi Master Depa Billaba. Depa Billaba was on the Jedi Council during the conflict of Naboo, about 10 years prior to the Clone Wars. She was a human born on the planet Kalacta and remained with her parents and sister until they were killed by space pirates. She and her sister Sar Labuda were rescued by Jedi Master Mace Windu and brought into the Order, and he eventually took Depa Billaba as his own Jedi Padawan. She was considered a wise and intensely spiritual Jedi, and well known for her skills with a lightsaber.
And she served on the council for the next decade and helped oversee decisions that would lead the Jedi into participation in the Clone Wars. Her sister ended up being killed in the first Battle of Geonosis. Billaba also served on the council when the decision was made to work to assassinate Count Dooku in an effort to end and win the war.
She spent some time off the council after a battle on Harun Kal. Facing General Grievous, leader of the Separatist Droid Army, her clone units suffered 90% casualties, and she was wounded badly enough that she fell into a coma and remained in that coma for about 6 months. The Jedi Council worried that her mental and emotional state wouldn't be fit for going back into service, but after passing their tests, she was reinstated on the High Council and took a Padawan, who was one Caleb Doom.
And at the tail end of the war, Billaba and her Padawan were on the planet Collar with her complement of clones, including Commander Gray and Captain Styles. And when Order 66 was issued to the clones, she was deep in meditation, and she saw a vision of the deaths of fellow council members. She sacrificed her life to ensure that her Padawan would survive. And he ended up changing his name from Caleb Doom to Kanan Jarrus and played a vital role in the formation of the rebellion against the Empire.
Another Jedi Master who served during the last decade plus of the Jedi High Council was the binary-brained Syrian Jedi Ki-Adi-Mundi. He had white hair and yellow eyes and sported a white goatee and mustache. Master Mundi was one of the most skeptical voices on the council when Master Qui-Gon Jinn suggested that the Sith had returned to the galaxy.
I remember when I first saw the historical record that, was the discovery really for historians of our era to learn about Ki-Adi-Mundi, and I was so blown away and excited by it. It was like a pictogram style history piece. It was really lovely. And he was part of Master Windu's strike team at the first Battle of Geonosis, and he became a Jedi General shortly after that, serving in the war across the galaxy. He was instrumental in the second Battle of Geonosis, helping destroy the droid foundries that had provided so much of the fighting force for the Confederacy of Independent Systems. He was wounded in that battle, and he had to spend a lengthy amount of time in a bacta tank, but he did recover from his wounds, and the battle was won.
He was one of the masters who refused to help Padawan Tano prove her innocence for the murder that she was accused to have committed. But then he praised her when Jedi Padawan Barra Safi was discovered to be the real perpetrator. He praised Tano for her tenacity when the Jedi offered to readmit her to the Order, but she would not excuse this hypocrisy from him and eventually left the Order.
Master Mundi was present, as many we've talked about, for most of the Jedi Council meetings that happened during the war, either in person or kind of almost like we would use Skype today. He was kind of clicked in via hologram. And in one of his last meetings, he was overly concerned about the droid attacks on the Wookiees, and he recommended that Master Kenobi be the one to apprehend General Grievous when information pinpointed Grievous's location to Utapau. He also proposed that the Jedi Council should remove Palpatine from office if he did not give up emergency powers after Grievous's defeat, but we're actually going to get to all of that a little bit later.
He was fighting in the snowy climes of Megiddo when the removal of Palpatine went wrong, and the order to execute the Jedi was given. His clone troops, led by Commander Bakara, turned on him and executed him mid-battle.
So before we get into some bigger topics and personalities, there are two other Jedi that we really need to mention, Brian. They both served on the council, but they had left the council prior to the crisis on Naboo. So one of those was Jocasta Nu, who was the Jedi librarian and master of the archives.
And she actually ended up surviving Order 66. I didn't realize that. And Darth Vader sort of hunted her down after the war. The other was Jedi Master Sifo-Dyas, who was a leading member of the Jedi Council until he was removed, actually. His radical ideas about the Jedi needing an army were untenable to the Council at that time. But it turned out that those ideas were just ahead of their time, as the Jedi embraced the clone army that Sifo-Dyas allegedly ordered into creation before his untimely death. And
a lot of mystery still surrounds his death, although it does seem pretty apparent if you look at the evidence that the Sith, in concert with the Pike Syndicate, murdered him sometime before the Naboo crisis. Did he place the order for the clones, or was he impersonated by Dooku? We really don't know. It remains unclear, and kind of a matter of debate among historians. But whoever did place that order, the Kaminoan cloners were convinced that it was Sifo-Dyas that did so at the behest of the Council. But of course, we know that the Council was unaware of such an order.
So moving on to other Jedi, because I think those two were definitely important in context for what's going on. And they were two members of the Jedi Council that we know of, but they weren't on at this point. We're going to talk about Agent Kolar. So as we mentioned before, there was an attempt to remove Sheev Palpatine from the office of Chancellor after it was revealed that he was a Sith Lord controlling both sides of the war. One of the Jedi from the Council that went to confront Palpatine in his office was Agent Kolar.
Kolar, a Zabrak, was a noted duelist and an expert at lightsaber combat. His saber was alleged to have been built with two crystals that allowed it to fluctuate in color between green and blue. But his saber and skill, special as they might have been, were not enough to save him. Palpatine turned Darth Sidious killed him with a single blow.
Another Jedi in the party to apprehend and arrest Palpatine was Saesee Tiin. Master Tiin was an Ikochi from the moon Ikoch and had orange and pink skin and yellow eyes. He had two pronounced horns on either side of his face as well. He was part of Master Windu's assault team at the First Battle of Geonosis, survived through the entire war with distinction, and he took part in the Battle of Lola Sayu in a starfighter and fought in the Battle of Umbara.
Although he was really well known for his telepathic powers and his ability piloting a starship, Tiin was also renowned for his ability with a lightsaber, and he was chosen by Master Windu to help arrest the Sith Lord occupying the Chancellor's seat. But as our last topic, this did not end well for him either. After Agent Kolar was slain, Saesee Tiin was killed as well.
The third member of Master Windu's Jedi Council team to remove the Chancellor from office was the Nautolan Kit Fisto. Hailing from the Glianselm system, Fisto was a member of an amphibious species. He boasted green skin, a thick mane of green head tails, and wide black eyes, as well as a disarming smile.
Fisto, not yet a member of the Jedi Council, was one of the Jedi that Mace Windu brought to Geonosis in his effort to free their fellow Jedi, Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker, as well as Senator Padme Amidala. And he quickly became a general during the Clone Wars, and he was granted a seat on the Council during the war. He participated in a number of vital battles and encounters as well.
At one point, he and his former Padawan, a Mon Calamari named Nodar Veb, were tasked with recapturing Separatist leader Newt Gunray, who'd slipped through the fingers of the Republic, but were led into a trap at the lair of the droid General Grievous. Veb, his former Padawan, did not survive that encounter. For a brief time during the war, Kit Fisto was stationed on the Ord Cestus Medical Station. He also participated in the Battle of Lola Sayu in a starfighter, aiding in the recovery of Captain Tarkin from the Citadel prison.
Being amphibious made him a natural choice to aid in the Battle of Mon Cala, where the Mon Calas faced overwhelming odds against the Separatists and their cyborg jellyfish weapons, known as Hydroid Medusas. That battle would not have been won for the Republic were it not for Fisto's help and the timely reinforcements that were provided by the Gungan Grand Army.
Because Mace Windu regarded him as one of the best laser sword fighters in the Order, he accompanied Mace Windu to arrest Chancellor Palpatine. He survived longer than his colleagues, Saesee Tiin and Agent Kolar, but was the third to die at Palpatine's hands.
And this brings us, finally, to Mace Windu himself, one of the most powerful Jedi on the High Council during the waning years of its power. He was a tall, broad man, bald-headed, with dark skin, and he wielded an unusual lightsaber, gold and chrome at the hilt that emitted a purple blade. He was born on the planet Harun Kal and was the Padawan of Jedi Master Saislin Mir. And after achieving knighthood, he took Depa Billaba, that we mentioned earlier, as his Padawan.
Between then and the blockade of Naboo, he'd risen to the rank of Jedi Master and earned his seat on the High Council. He was against the idea of Qui-Gon Jinn training Anakin Skywalker, but relented after Qui-Gon's death and allowed Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was Qui-Gon's Padawan, to skip the boy's formal training as a youngling and graduate straight to the rank of Padawan.
Windu led the Jedi Strike Team that we've referenced a number of times now, that was 200 strong, to Geonosis to rescue Kenobi, Skywalker, and Senator Amidala. And he personally parlayed with Count Dooku, an old friend of his from the Order, and he also fought alongside the other Jedi. He personally beheaded the bounty hunter Jango Fett in the process, and then went directly to command ground forces in an effort to prevent the Trade Federation from escaping the planet.
He fought in many notable engagements throughout the war after that point as a general, from the showdown at Hisrich and the rescue of Rada the Hutt to the liberation of Ryloth and the battles of Malastare, Dantooine, and Anaxes. He also personally advocated for Quinlan Voss's mission to attempt the assassination of Count Dooku in an effort to end the war early.
After Anakin Skywalker brought Windu information that led him to believe that his Chancellor, Sheev Palpatine, was really the Sith Lord behind both sides of the war, Windu assembled his team to confront the Chancellor. Skywalker actually requested to be on that team, but Windu rebuked him because he still really didn't trust the young Jedi Knight. So he lit out with Kit Fisto, Saesee Tiin, and Agent Kolar to confront the Chancellor. And Skywalker's information, of course, was correct, and the others were killed by the Sith Lord, and Windu was the last man standing against him.
Mace Windu insisted that Palpatine was too dangerous to be left alive, but Skywalker, disobeying orders, arrived in time to try to stop Windu from killing Palpatine, arguing that such an execution was not the Jedi way. When Windu persisted, Skywalker cut his arm off, removing his lightsaber from his grasp and allowing Palpatine to use Force Lightning to cast him out of the window of his office, which was many hundreds of stories up on Coruscant. At this point, Windu was presumed dead just before Palpatine called for the execution of Jedi with Order 66.
And that leads us to Anakin Skywalker, who didn't spend much time on the Jedi Council at all, and he was also the only Jedi that was given a seat on the Council without being granted the rank of Master. Skywalker was a human boy from Tatooine who was rescued from slavery at the age of 8 by Qui-Gon Jinn and brought into the Jedi Order. He was conceived of midichlorians, so Qui-Gon felt that he was the chosen one that had been discussed in Jedi prophecy.
Long story short, and I really mean extremely long story, extremely short, he was vital in the victory of the Naboo in their initial crisis, and because of that, the Council reversed their decision to allow him to be trained. He was captured by Count Dooku and Jango Fett on Geonosis while he was tasked with protecting Senator Amidala some years later when she was being threatened by assassination over the Military Creation Act, and this helped prompt the Jedi Council into sending a task force led by Mace Windu to rescue them.
Immediately after the First Battle of Geonosis, Skywalker secretly married Senator Amidala, and around that same time, he was granted the rank of Jedi Knight. He fought in numerous conflicts during the war and took on a Padawan, the Togruta Ahsoka Tano. Toward the end of the war, his wife, Padme Amidala, became pregnant, and he started to have visions of her death, and that was actually a factor in his manipulation at the hands of the Chancellor.
It was Chancellor Palpatine who overstepped his bounds and appointed Skywalker as his personal representative on the Jedi Council. Now, this caused friction between the Council and the Chancellor's office, and Anakin was expected by both sides to play both sides. So Palpatine wanted Anakin to be his spy and advocate on the Council, and the Council expected Skywalker to spy on the Chancellor for them.
It's a really sucky position to be put in.
Yeah.
Palpatine stoked the conflicted spirit of Skywalker, and he revealed to him that not only did he know of Anakin's secret pregnant wife and the visions he was having of her death, he also revealed that his powers as a Sith could potentially save her. And to his credit, Skywalker did take this information to Master Windu, but then Windu, as we mentioned a few moments ago, benched him.
Disobeying orders to wait until Palpatine had been subdued by Master Windu and his team, Skywalker walked in on what looked to be a helpless, unarmed Palpatine ready to be executed mercilessly by an extremely aggressive and un-Jedi-like Mace Windu. Despite having killed Count Dooku in exactly the same manner, Skywalker explained to Windu that an execution without a trial was not the Jedi way. Windu argued that Palpatine was too dangerous to be left alive and proceeded with his attack.
So as we mentioned again a little bit ago, Skywalker responded to all of this by cutting Mace Windu's arm off, and that enabled Palpatine to have his moment to execute the Jedi Master. And at that point, Skywalker then pledged himself to Palpatine, and that is when he took on the name Darth Vader. He then proceeded to march on the Jedi Temple along with the 501st Battalion, and he killed every Jedi and youngling that was left in the temple.
Anakin's master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, was one of a handful of Jedi that survived the Jedi Purge and was sent to confront this new Darth Vader. But before we get to that, let's talk about his role on the Council, and him himself. He was a human from the planet Stujon, and was the Padawan of Qui-Gon Jinn and took Anakin Skywalker as his apprentice.
And during the Clone Wars, his Padawan graduated to the rank of Knight, and late in the war, he was granted the rank of Master, and he was granted a seat on the Jedi High Council. We don't want to get too deep into Kenobi in this episode, since we will probably do an episode on him just by himself at some point. But needless to say, he participated in a number of major conflicts during the war, and he was tasked by the Council to bring the droid General Grievous into custody, dead or alive, at the close of the war.
Yeah, Kenobi's another one of those characters who's just, in history, who's just like, you could talk about him for years.
Yes.
So, while Kenobi was on Utapau, after dispatching General Grievous, Order 66 was declared, and his clone commander Cody turned on him. The clones presumed that he was dead. They blasted him, and he fell a great distance, and they just said, yeah, nobody could have survived that, but he wasn't nobody. And they left the planet, and Kenobi was allowed to escape in General Grievous's personal ship and found refuge aboard the Tanavi 4 with Senator Bail Organa. He and Organa discovered that the Jedi Temple was transmitting a message to all remaining Jedi that told them that the war was over and they needed to return to the temple, which was a trap.
So with Organa's help, Kenobi and Master Yoda snuck back to Coruscant to change that coded transmission to tell the Jedi to stay hidden until the time was right. And then Kenobi was tasked with confronting the newly minted Sith Lord and his former Padawan, Darth Vader. The two of them fought bitterly on the lava planet of Mustafar, and Kenobi was able to get the better of his former student. He cut off all of Darth Vader's remaining limbs, and he left him to die, burned and scarred near the flow of lava, not expecting Darth Sidious himself to save Darth Vader's life.
Yeah, he just kind of left him to die and walked away, and Sidious showed up afterwards and saved him. It was probably not the best decision he ever made. But at that point, he went into exile to watch over Anakin's son Luke, until such time as the galaxy needed Luke in a way that maybe Luke didn't understand.
And the last member of the council that we're going to talk about was the Grand Master of the Jedi Order in its final decades, Master Yoda. He was renowned for his skills in the Force, his wisdom, his high midichlorian count, and his abilities with a lightsaber. By the time of the crisis on Naboo, records indicate that he was about 860 years old.
Yeah, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
He was in charge of at least part of the training of all the younglings that came through the Jedi Temple, and it's estimated that over his 800 years in training Jedi, that he trained more than 20,000 of them. His last known Padawan that he took personally was Count Dooku, who became the Sith Lord Darth Tyrannus. Yoda engaged in a lightsaber duel with his former Padawan at the First Battle of Geonosis, but was unable to subdue him. Dooku was able to get away by forcing a choice in his former master between saving the lives of Kenobi and Skywalker or capturing the fallen Jedi.
Yoda spent the duration of the Clone Wars advising from his seat as Grand Master of the Jedi High Council. One fascinating bit of mentoring that he did was to assign Anakin Skywalker the Padawan Ahsoka Tano. Now, normally Jedi chose their own Padawans, so Skywalker was surprised to have been assigned one, sort of out of the blue, but Yoda did this in an effort to try to temper Skywalker's attachment issues and his sort of natural recklessness.
Which was a really good instinct on Yoda's part. It just didn't work out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like the Padawan aspect actually was really good for him, and had the outside things that happened with Ahsoka Tano's story not played out, he may have ended up on a slightly different and more peaceful path, but that's all speculation.
Yeah. So, Master Yoda was instrumental in advising in various conflicts across the war, but spent much of the time just overseeing things. And he also worked to uncover the secret of why he was hearing the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn long after he transformed into the Force.
And near the end of the war, Yoda sensed increasing distrust from the Chancellor, and he knew something was going on despite the clouding of his vision that he experienced due to the dark side having been kind of looming and moving for a while without anyone realizing it. And based on his prior relationship with the Wookiees, he actually volunteered to travel to Kashyyyk after the devastating droid attack, and he was there when the order to execute Order 66 was given.
So Master Yoda sensed the Jedi dying across the galaxy, and this is what tipped him off to what was happening. When Clone Commander Gree went to execute Master Yoda after he'd been given Order 66, Yoda decapitated him. And with the help of the Wookiees, he was able to make his way off-planet and was scooped up by Bail Organa, who'd already picked up Master Kenobi.
And Yoda accompanied Kenobi to Coruscant to change the message at the Jedi Temple. And while Kenobi was left to deal with Darth Vader, Yoda vowed to deal with Darth Sidious personally. Confronting the Sith Lord in his office beneath the Senate, the two of them engaged in an epic battle of lightsabers and force powers. But unfortunately, Master Yoda was unable to defeat the Sith Lord, and the battle ended in a draw.
Yoda was able to escape and exiled himself onto the planet Dagobah, and that was the effective end of the Jedi Order and the Jedi Council. And Palpatine was allowed to reign over the galaxy for the next almost 20 years.
And that's basically it for our knowledge of the Jedi Council as it stands now, how it worked, who the personalities on that council were. It's a really engaging subject, and it's quite intriguing, and we're constantly hoping and getting excited at the possibility that we'll uncover more history sooner or later.
Yeah, it's a really, it's it's an august body, and it had a lot of great history to it, but these last years, it was just sort of like you see sort of bad decision after bad decision, and you have a council of people in what is a religion dedicated to peacekeeping happily taking up the mantle of general over these last years.
Yeah, I mean, you and I have talked about this a lot of the time, that, you know, there was this problem of hubris and sort of a blindness caused by pride among the Jedi that really kind of helped this dark time along, because it really made them make some bad moves. And it's one of those things, though, that I continue to be excited about, because if you think about it, we really knew very little about the Jedi until fairly recent history. And in that time, like, a lot of historical records have been unearthed. So I'm hoping that we'll continue to have kind of that nice flow of information about them.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't have any mail this week, but we do want to hear from you. If you would like to send us any messages, you can go to fothentichistory.com, use the contact form there. And where can people find you, Holly?
I'm on Twitter as Surliest Girl, and I'm on Instagram as SurlyGirly5, and I'm all over the interwebs. I have a podcast called Stuff You Missed in History Class, and that is at missedinhistory.com. And then if you go to fullofsith.com, you'll find the podcast I do with Brian every week about Star Wars.
Yeah, that's a really great, fun show. We love talking about Star Wars. You can find me, like Holly said, at Full of Sith, or you can look me up on Twitter or just about any other social media, ranging from Instagram and Facebook to Patreon, by looking up Swankmatron. And you can find me there and all the work that I'm doing elsewhere. And as far as Fothentic History goes, you can, like I said, find us at fothentichistory.com. You can fill out our contact form and leave us a message. You can listen to our entire back catalog there of episodes. We've got quite a few that you'll probably be interested in. And you can also find us on Twitter at Fothentics, and you can look us up on Facebook. We're there too. Just type in Fothentic History. We are wherever podcasts are listened to, and if you'd like to leave us a review wherever you listen to them, we'd greatly appreciate that if you'd like too. Anything else, Holly?
No, I just can't wait to learn more about Jedi and what we talk about next, and I hope everybody comes back for more.
I think they will. I hope they will. Until next time.